Welcome to Let's Talk Business Phoenix, the Greater Phoenix Chamber's podcast. I'm your host, Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. Each week, we tackle key issues affecting businesses, the community, and state, aiming to drive growth and overcome challenges while uniting community leaders to move Phoenix forward.
Let's Talk Business Phoenix was produced in partnership with Ideas Collide, an agency offering a full suite of custom marketing solutions for your brand's unique challenges. Make a connection at ideascollide.com.
Welcome back to the podcast. We have a very special show and a special guest here today. We have Richard Gray, who is the CEO of Mayo, Arizona. Richard, thank you for being here with us.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know that a lot of folks know you out there in the community, but for those who don't, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then maybe something about you that we wouldn't find on your bio, for instance.
Okay, well, so I'm originally from Michigan, but I've been in Arizona for about 30 years. And probably the thing that most people wouldn't see on my bio is that I grew up in a rural area of Michigan on the corner of a cattle ranch, and I'm the youngest of 7. So I have 6 older sisters, and we had 1 bathroom. So I'll pause there to let you psychoanalyze what that did to me growing up.
And you have an understanding for logistics then.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we're thinking about the mitten, where were you on the mitten?
Well, I'll do the Michigan thing up here. Okay. So near a small town named Gaylord, that's again a more rural community, but it was a wonderful place to grow up.
Wonderful. And did that many sisters? Well, I guess you understood a thing or two about life.
Well, my poor wife, when she had to meet 7 mothers instead of 1, it was quite an undertaking.
I can understand that.
Yeah. So grew up in Michigan. Went to college at a Division II public school there, played basketball in college.
What position did you play?
I played 2 guard or 3 small forward.
Okay, depending.
Depending on the opponent and what was going on, right. What the matchups were.
Now we can look you up.
That's right, yeah. And then I went to medical school in Michigan also. Actually went to medical school at Michigan State University and was in a special program for rural primary care physicians. There were only 6 of us in the class. All of us had somewhat rural backgrounds. That's where we wanted to go. I was an utter failure of the program because I became an urban subspecialty surgeon. And so after I finished and I figured out that I did want to be a surgeon, that's when I came to Mayo Clinic. So I actually came to Arizona to Mayo Clinic as an intern in 1995.
Okay, and ever since?
Been here ever since. During my training, after I finished my surgical training at Mayo Clinic, I went to Florida to Moffitt Cancer Center for surgical oncology training, cancer surgery training. But even that was under a Mayo program where I knew I was coming back. So I've really been Mayo through and through for the past 30 years.
And 30, we could almost call you a native at this point.
I would welcome it.
So I'm curious, what was it that drew you to medicine? What was the spark?
Yeah, I don't have one of those. A lot of people in medicine have one of those inspirational stories, right? A family member gets ill, they experience a terrific nurse or a terrific doctor or something that draws them in. I was more focused on staying out of the way of my sisters and playing basketball, but trying to achieve academically. And as I was going through recruiting process, they started to ask, what do you want to major in? So they could connect me with counselors and talk about those programs. And that was really the spark of me saying, okay, it's time to figure out what I need to do with my life. And so I explored a lot of different options, talked about it with my parents, talked about it with others that I knew in the community there. And one of the ideas that I had was medicine, and just connected with our small town doctor, our family doctor.
A rural doctor, ironically.
A rural doctor who, took me in, let me shadow him, see what that was all about. So it was more of a process of figuring out what seemed to fit me and hearing from others, hey, what do you see? Where do you see my gifts? What do you think would be a good pursuit for me? That made me choose that, and then just stayed on the path from there.
And you felt like that was, once you got in, you knew you were on the right path.
Well, I'm a pretty stick-to-it type of person. So once I started down that path, there was nothing that really turned me from it, and only things that drew me in more and more. And you go through a long academic path where you don't experience the real life of medicine. So I tried to find opportunities to get connected to that real life of medicine. And every time I did, it just really resonated with me. And I knew I could have a passion for it.
And then once you got through surgical oncology, was there a similar thought process there, or what kind of drew you there?
Yes, as I went through my training, I really enjoyed caring for patients with cancer. So a lot of people would come to me and say, "Boy, isn't that tough? Isn't that a difficult diagnosis to deal with people?" And really, it was just something that I found very compelling, to have people in some of their scariest moments of their lives, really looking for help. And especially in surgical oncology, we can often really make a difference for people. And so to have that opportunity with people to trust you, to care for them in those difficult circumstances, really drew me in. And then the other thing that drew me in was how it was so coordinated and multi-specialty. There were the surgical aspects of the care, the medical oncology aspects, giving chemotherapy, immunotherapies and other things, radiation therapies, even endocrine or hormonal type therapies, and fitting all those pieces together and working with others to make sure you get that mix exactly right and the sequence exactly right really spoke to me in terms of that teamwork aspect. Perhaps, again, it comes out of athletics, but Mayo is very much about teamwork, and I saw that teamwork work so well for cancer patients. It really spoke to me.
And I want to come back to that in a minute. But clearly you did that for a period of time, but then decided you wanted to get into the administrative side.
Yes. Well, as I then began my career after training at Mayo Clinic is a physician-led organization. So from every level of the organization, there is physician leadership. We tend to be paired with also an administrative expert at many of those levels. So really within a year of being at Mayo Clinic, I was asked to lead something.
Within a year?
And so that was not uncommon.
Okay.
And so I was involved in leadership within education, within some of our clinical practice planning, and then within the cancer center, and just had many of those opportunities. And again, at Mayo, we really believe in physicians continuing to practice as they are in leadership positions, so that it isn't administration figuring out some aspects and the physicians figuring out others. It all rolls together.
Part of the DNA, no pun intended.
Keeps the patient in the center of everything. And so throughout my time with clinical practice, research, education, leadership and administration became a component of that as well.
So they're one and the same, essentially.
They are. And then I came into my current role about 6 years ago.
What a great story. And, it's interesting to hear when we talk to different leaders, how they got to where they are and how they see things. Curious, obviously leadership is something that was instilled, obviously, at an early age, even in sports. What's your philosophy on leadership? How do you see leadership?
Yeah, I guess the way that I would characterize maybe my leadership style or approach is more of a trust and inspire type of approach. I believe in the collective genius of so many great people, and especially at Mayo Clinic, when we have so many smart people around, how do we best draw out all of that collective genius? And I find that comes mostly from trusting people, inspiring, getting people aligned, but then listening to them and making fewer and fewer decisions myself because others are making wise decisions and I'm just helping to align those. And then just really to keep things in balance. I think where leaders go wrong is when they get out of balance. Hat tip to Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor, talking about the balance between candor and caring. And I think there's a lot of other aspects of that, of gratitude and yet still striving, of being grateful and yet wanting more. So I try to always think also about staying in balance for our organization and for myself.
Well, and just getting to know you and hearing your story, it seems like also a certain amount of humility.
Yeah, and that's another balance, right? To lead with both humility and courage. You can get off on either edge of that. And getting back to the collective genius of people, I recognize that I don't have all the answers. I recognize that I don't have the insights, and the people that are closest to things will have insights that I don't have. And yet I will also have a bigger perspective just by the nature of what my role is.
Sure.
That's important to infuse into it as well.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you.
Correct.
So that's probably the other side of that.
Leadership is just about responsibility and taking ownership.
Well, I want to pivot a little bit because you go anywhere in this country and a lot of parts of the world, and you mentioned Mayo Clinic or even like Cleveland Clinic. I mean, it's known throughout the country and throughout the world. What's the secret sauce? What is it that makes it different? What's the value proposition, or what is it that differentiates the Mayo system?
There's a very long list to that.
Okay.
I do think something I mentioned earlier is important, that we have throughout our history been a physician-led organization, and therefore it is a unified approach to what we do at Mayo Clinic. But our culture has aspects that's very difficult to replicate. And all of us that in 2025 are at Mayo Clinic are just benefiting from the buildup of that culture over more than 160 years. The core value at Mayo Clinic is the needs of the patient come first. Sounds like
Sure.
that should be true of every healthcare organization, but you would be surprised how often that isn't the case. And especially when push comes to shove and there's a decision being made in a boardroom about something, not always do the needs of the patient come first in every organization and every decision. Mayo is a place where that is really what happens. And I mentioned teamwork earlier. I've never seen a place where the ratio of brilliance to humility is as high as it is at Mayo Clinic. And that leads to people saying, I am going to get everybody's input. I am going to bring all of the specialists around. We're going to share the responsibility of getting this patient to the right place. And that's really what has led to us being a place that is complementary to other healthcare organizations, that is the place where you have something complex or rare or a difficult to solve problem. The collective genius and the teamwork that comes together at Mayo Clinic is the special sauce. And that is built off of that culture that has developed over more than 160 years.
Tall order. How do you maintain that culture?
Well, I think all of us that have been around for a while have to be stewards of that culture.
Yeah.
We have to be the ones that talk about it, the ones that model it, the ones that come alongside the people that come into our organizations. We've gone through several periods of rapid growth. We, a couple of years ago, were at a point where we had grown so rapidly that 1 in 4 of our employees here in Arizona had been with Mayo Clinic for less than 1 year. And that was a place where we really talked to that other 75% and said, it is on all of us to make sure we put our arm around the shoulders of these new individuals, help them understand how the needs of the patient come first, how we expect teamwork and humility and all of our other core values to work, and we preserve this culture. And everyone stepped up in incredible ways to do that.
Because it's easy to lose.
It's easy to lose, and then it all goes away.
Yeah, and very difficult to get back.
What's the special sauce? Why do we have such high quality? Why do we have all the things that we have? It is really down to that culture and people saying, I will do whatever it takes to put the best interest of this patient first.
So oftentimes we hear in sort of the political arena that, our healthcare system in this country isn't what it should be. There's so much we could be doing different. Clearly, you're doing it. Why is it so difficult to replicate?
Well, I do think there are aspects of Mayo Clinic that are difficult to replicate, and there are aspects that shouldn't be replicated. So some of that culture you have to build up over time. Okay. And Mayo Clinic does have that special niche. We have that special niche for those most complex patients. And that has come because of that expertise being built up and the teamwork being built up over the years. So we need lots of different complementary pieces to mesh together in our healthcare system. So I agree with people when they say there are broken aspects of the U.S. healthcare system. No question. I think all of us can say that. And yet, we cared for people from all 50 states and more than 60 foreign nations at Mayo Clinic in Arizona last year. Across all of Mayo Clinic, more than 130 nations. So where do people come when they get sick and they have a really challenging situation? They still come to the United States. So the healthcare that we can deliver here is incredible. But the system and the coordination and how we get ahead of things, and quite frankly, some of the social aspects that are so important to determine people's health, those are places where we can really improve. And again, there's lots of places where we can improve.
Well, I know driving on the 101, I know that Mayo is something important to us economically and certainly special to us. But, as the leader of this campus, what makes it special?
Well, I mentioned some of the things that make Mayo Clinic special. And so we have a culture. And then each of our 3, what we call destination medical centers in Minnesota, Florida, and Arizona, each have a microculture. And I would say what makes Arizona especially unique is we still have, perhaps it's because we're in the West, but we still have a real pioneering spirit. We really have that, we'll take that on. We'll try something new. I'm not afraid of going for something that's different. And I really appreciate about our team here in Arizona being the ones that will step up to those types of things.
It is true. I mean, we're all kind of from different parts of the world. You're from the Midwest. I'm originally from Colombia. We're all from different parts of the world, and people are starting new and trying new things, and that is sort of a very Arizona thing, I think, to be about.
It is. It's an Arizona thing, and Mayo Clinic came to Arizona in 1987. So we're a little younger here, so we still have those young vibes, as well as being located in this area that is known for being more pioneering.
Well, you mentioned rapid expansion just a couple of months ago. Huge announcement, multi-billion-dollar expansion. Talk to us a little bit about how that came about and what it's going to mean.
Well, again, we're really trying to meet the needs for the future. So we have just come through a significant expansion. So over the past 5 to 6 years, we grew our footprint by 1.6 million square feet. We hired over 300 physicians, over 3,000 staff members, greatly expanded our research and education efforts. And yet we still have much more need than there is capacity. So part of what this plan is trying to meet the need, especially for the Phoenix metro area in Arizona, but as I said, for people that come here from around the world. But it's also about us saying at Mayo that we want to lead in what the future of healthcare should look like. So there are a lot of transformational elements. And so I mentioned we want to be a complement. We want to provide unique capabilities. So we'll build on unique capabilities. We will create experiences for patients that are worthy of them saying, hey, I haven't found answers anywhere. And when they come to us, there's something about Mayo that helps put them at ease and say, okay, this is a place where I can find answers.
The diagnostic side of things.
Yes. I'm in a coat and tie today, and we wear formal professional attire. That's a non-Arizona thing to do.
Yes.
But that is something we do at Mayo Clinic simply as a signal to our patients primarily, but also to ourselves that this is a different place. So you mentioned the announcement. It's a nearly $1.9 billion investment, the largest that we've made in Arizona. We'll expand by over 1.2 million square feet of additional space. And we will do a lot of connectivity for patients, bringing in new technology. We're talking about it as making technology another member of the care team. And what would happen if our facilities helped make everything safer for patients, proactively, not just reactively.
I see.
As well as reimagining what a care experience can be for patients. Things like, hey, can we make it so that we can safely monitor patients' vital signs and perhaps even some laboratory tests without awakening them? Let them get a good night's sleep if they're in the hospital.
Which is always a thing at the hospital, right?
It's always a thing.
They're getting blood
exactly.
Or doing something.
Exactly. And as we grow, and it's a larger and larger medical center, building this concept of care neighborhoods, where, yes, you're going into a big medical center, but you get to a place that is smaller and more familiar where you can get most things done. Like you and I have our local, we have our local grocery store, our pharmacy, our hardware store, whatever that we go to on a regular basis. Most things are within a contiguous area where patients feel comfortable and are not running from one corner to another corner of the campus.
So, amazing, and I'm so pleased that this is happening here. And from a sort of community standpoint, economically, this is amazing news for us here from a lot of perspectives. But you talked about the demand. Assuming we get this, well, you will get it all done, but even then, you're still not going to be able to meet the demand. Is that correct?
Well, I think that's fair to say. When we started our last expansion, and I mentioned how much we grew in our last expansion, we were only able to meet about 40% of the demand.
Okay.
Once we finished that expansion, again, very substantial, very rapid growth, we were able to only meet 37% of the demand. So I agree with you. I think even with this growth on top of our recent growth, we won't be able to meet the demand. And that's where we've really stepped into trying to do more orchestration for patients. We have a number of collaborations so that if patients are seeking a certain type of care, and maybe that's not exactly where Mayo adds the most value, they're not the most complex patient. I always joke, though, even if you just have a hangnail, you don't want somebody to say, I'm sorry, your condition isn't complex enough to come to us. What you just want is help. And so we've done more and more collaborations because we know there will be more demand than capacity to orchestrate very quickly getting in those patients who have a new brain cancer diagnosis or need an organ transplant or whatever that needs the Mayo special sauce. But we have collaborators who are excellent and have been vetted and have very high quality, and we can guide some of those other patients to expert collaborators with us so that people are having their needs met. But it doesn't always have to come from Mayo Clinic. It comes from the best source of care for them in their particular situation.
I'm sensing a pattern here, and you talked about balance in the system, and it sounds like that's what you're going to achieve in getting more balance.
Yeah, and we've talked about it as more of a platform approach. I mean, we know about platform businesses, right, and how those have changed things with the likes of Uber and Amazon and others. And we want to more and more be a place where we can match patients' needs with the best supplier of those needs, even if it isn't always Mayo Clinic.
And you get the best outcome.
Correct.
So, you talked about technology, and I know there over the last several years, there's been a lot of talk about some of the new technology, especially on the oncology front. But tell us a little bit more about what we can expect going forward on the technology front.
Yeah, a lot of changes. We live in an amazing time. We happen to live in a time when we are learning a lot more at the deeper levels of the genome, but also not just genomics, but protein levels, proteomics, and exposures of people, environmental exposures. All of that keeps adding more and more data to sort through and to weave together, which makes it much more difficult. And yet we also live at a time when AI has made it easier and easier to process that information and present it back in usable forms for care providers. So I think the technology that we will continue to see come forward is going to be amazing. And some of that is in places you would expect. So again, unique capabilities. Mayo Clinic has now a 7 Tesla MRI. It's more than twice as powerful as any other clinical MRI in our region.
So it gives you better detail?
So you can get more detail.
Okay.
And we've had patients who have had refractory epilepsy for years. And this MRI allowed us to identify it and surgically intervene and get that person over their epilepsy. So lots of stories like that. Proton beam therapy that is more targeted and specific for certain types of patients who need radiation. So I think those medical technologies will continue, but we'll get more and more synthetic biology where we're reprogramming cells. Maybe even someday reprogramming cells to act as sensors, to detect problems when they happen, and maybe even a level after that to program cells that once there's a detection of that problem, it starts intervening by making a protein that's needed immediately.
It activates.
It activates. And for us, AI, we do believe is a big part of our future, and we've got a lot of activities underway with that. Again, platform activities like I talked about, but we have over 320 AI models in various stages of deployment at Mayo Clinic right now that are actively being another member of the healthcare team to improve outcomes for patients.
So, not an end-all be-all, but it's one of the tools, one of the diagnostic tools you have available to you.
Yes, and it AI is doing amazing things. You talked about what's wrong with the U.S. healthcare system. What are some of the problems? I think everyone would say that healthcare is not proactive enough. It's a little too reactive. It's not quite personalized enough. We've gotten more precise, but it's still not quite personalized. And certainly, I think the Phoenix Chamber and many businesses, as well as individuals, would say it's also not affordable. The cost is going up too fast. And we see a lot of applications for all of that through AI, of being more proactive. Patients down the road right now at Mayo Clinic, if they have an EKG, that's a test that's designed to look for electrical problems in the heart. But through machine learning and other types of AI models, we now can run algorithms on that. Today, there would be about 6 algorithms running on those ECGs that predict that person might run into heart failure.
Whereas
totally different diagnosis.
a traditional physician looking at that wouldn't have that.
There is no way anyone would be able to recognize from an ECG about the impending heart failure that might come for that patient. Now we can be proactive. We can intervene sooner and maybe head that off before they need a heart transplant or something drastic, and we can get it at an earlier stage. And again, predicting other things from other types of tests.
Preventative medicine to the next level, it sounds like.
Correct. And bringing together all of the data to make it more personalized. And even, as I said, making things more affordable. Another model we have working today is for patients with head and neck cancer. When they need radiation treatments, there's so many structures in the head and neck you have to protect. It's a very complex thing to plan that radiation.
Sure.
From a planning CT, our radiation oncologists and physicists used to take an average of about 17 hours to make one of those plans for a patient.
Of course, yeah.
But we now have a model that takes the planning CT and just auto-contours it. It makes the plan automatically. And now they can spend about 1 hour quality controlling it, making sure it's exactly right for that patient's goals. And if you think about that it now can give high quality, consistent care at 1/17 the work effort,
Yes.
that starts to say maybe we can bend that cost
Absolutely.
curve and
Well,
start to make things more affordable.
And demand, if you got 16 hours that you can give back.
Correct, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Exactly.
So I want to focus a little bit on sort of the impact of the community. Clearly, a huge economic investment that's coming, workforce. So from a workforce perspective, what does Mayo Clinic look like?
Yeah, so obviously we're growing,
Yes.
and the workforce is needed, but there's also demographic issues, right? Our country is aging. Baby boomers continue to enter into that over 65 age group, and as people age, they run into more health conditions. They run into more serious health conditions. So the demand for healthcare workers will continue to build. And people talk about AI taking jobs. Believe me, there will be healthcare roles to be had as we move forward. And in Arizona, we'll be tens of thousands of healthcare workers short. So
You're already seeing that.
yes, we do see it. We've been very blessed at Mayo Clinic to be able to recruit very well. And we've had a good pipeline of talent, and I think that speaks well of our state, speaks well of the types of quality individuals we can attract. But there continue to be pockets of specialized niche training and individuals that are needed in those areas where there are clear shortages. And so we continue to look for the ways that we can partner or we ourselves help to fill that. Part of our mission at Mayo Clinic is clinical care, but also research and education. We have 5 schools of education here in Arizona. And so we're continuing to work on producing the kind of Mayo Clinic quality individuals that will be needed in the future. But we also, as I said, collaborate with others, with our community providers, our public universities, and they have all been great at putting in programs. When the pandemic hit, there were a lot of pharmaceutical companies that went around to places like Mayo Clinic and said, hey, those clinical research coordinators, would you like to come work for us and we'll put a 0 at the end of your salary? And we lost a lot of those coordinators.
Absolutely.
And our community colleges stepped up and said, oh, there's a need there. We'll start making sure we educate people for that. And at one point, we were able to hire 85 clinical research coordinators in 1 quarter. produce.
Astounding.
It's amazing. So we're working with a lot of individuals to try to address it, but it will be an ongoing issue that all of us will need to lean into.
Well, and I need to, speaking of humility, because you don't talk about this, but our program, our Elevate Ed program, where we're actually working with high school seniors and getting a real world experience. One of the track is healthcare, and we went around to the systems, and Mayo was the first to raise their hand and said yes, and we'll provide a stipend, which for our kids is the difference. Why did you do that?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you to the Phoenix Chamber for stepping up and recognizing that need across multiple industries, but within healthcare as well. And we were proud to be a part of that. We were part of that because it's part of our mission. Education is part of our mission. We love and have a passion about providing healthcare, and we believe when people experience that, they will be drawn to it. And so every opportunity we can have to get that kind of exposure to young individuals, we think is a win. Now, we did have to do some tweaks. Previously, our internships had an age limit of 18 years or older. So to have the high school seniors really have opportunities, we were able to move that down to 17. And it's been fantastic to have those interns there. We've been doing it for about 3 years. We think it's important for the future of Mayo Clinic, important for the future of healthcare, but really important for Arizona and for our society in general.
Well, I get to talk to those kids, and it's a game changer for them. And you've changed. It's a game changer for them, but it's also generational change, where they're finding a career and a place where they belong, where they feel like they can contribute, and all of a sudden, families are absolutely impacted by this. And so, thank you for doing that. That's a big deal.
No, again, it's our pleasure, and we do find that's the impact, right? People find something like I did when they get a little taste of it, when they get a little experience. Instead of working only in retail or at a restaurant, they get a little different experience, and they say, wait a second, this is something that can be very meaningful to me. It can be a fulfilling pathway, but also can economically help myself and my family.
It's so true. And so many of the kids we talk to just don't know what else is out there.
Right.
And to give them an opportunity, I know there was one kid who wanted to go into engineering, and it was what he wanted to do, and he got the internship, and he hated it. This isn't what I want to do, which was equally important to get that experience and then get into something he did want to do. And I think, for this, we're talking to some of these kids, they never knew that they could belong in a place like a Mayo. And all of a sudden, not only do they have an internship, in a lot of cases, they're now having careers or going to college and sticking with Mayo, which is exactly what we want.
Right. Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have, people have stuck with the program, and we've seen a lot of people go into healthcare, including now people returning to Mayo Clinic, either at the end of their internships or, as you say, they go on to additional either training or secondary education, and then they're starting to come back. And it's also very fulfilling for our staff to be able to teach these young people to try and bring them along. We have a number of programs. We have another one with called Project Search that is for developmentally disabled young people that have some type of disability, and they do internships where people love training them up and trying to find a career for them. But our Elevate Ed interns, they're so young and energetic, and they have everything to learn. It just brightens the day of our staff. And to have a little bit of a difference in what you're doing each day, because you're meeting this new 17, 18-year-old, really is meaningful for our staff as well. So it's a win for both ends.
It's cool when I meet him, is that the next Richard Gray? Who knows, right? I mean, that kid that didn't have an opportunity, we opened the door. They did the hard work, but you never know.
Hopefully not. I've been me. We want a better version for the next generation.
All right. Yes. That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. So looking forward, it's just healthcare writ large. What are some of the industry challenges and maybe some opportunities going forward?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it, and I would say we could do a laundry list of individual challenges, but I think they do fit into that being more proactive, personalized, and affordable. And again, there's a lot of opportunities here, and I'll return to AI and say if we do this right, and at Mayo Clinic, our approach has been to be decentralized and grassroots. I mentioned collective genius. Let's have all these smart people that are dealing with day-to-day problems and saying, wait, how do we find that heart failure patient before they get symptoms and before they're so long into their disease? I bet an AI algorithm can help predict that. I wonder if we can do it from an EKG. That's how that came about. It came about from
Somebody asked the question.
It came about from cardiologists who said, we need to solve this problem. And we helped people to understand how AI can help solve real-world healthcare problems. But I would say at an even bigger level, going back to that platform thinking, we have recognized the challenges of AI in healthcare. So going back to 2019, part of Mayo Clinic's strategy was to create something called Mayo Clinic Platform. And the problems in applying AI to healthcare are you need a lot of data, and you need it to be from various types of patients, not just all from northern Michigan.
Not homogeneous data.
You can't have homogeneous data. And we need to find an efficient way to develop these models and share them. So not every cardiologist has to develop that algorithm for their healthcare organization.
Like an open source type of approach.
Correct. So we created Mayo Clinic Platform, and that first we created a distributed data network. It now spans 4 continents with nearly half of all of the highest ranked healthcare organizations in the world participating, where we pool our data. It's protected, de-identified. Sure. We can't get at each other's data, but in aggregate, it can be used to train and validate these models. And the rules of the road are, then once you develop it, it's available on the platform to any healthcare organization,
not just those,
that joins the platform, and they can take it in. So we have over 100 solution developers. We have over 60 healthcare organizations and growing constantly, so that things like I mentioned earlier, of that radiation planning at 1/17 the work effort, we're working to make that available on the platform. And then imagine that any healthcare organization on the platform can take that in and be that much more efficient, higher quality, and you start to get some hope that we can make a difference in the quality and access and affordability that are big issues.
Exponential impact.
Yes, because it helps society. We could build the models just for Mayo Clinic and it would help 1.3 million patients a year, or we can put it on the platform, and our goal is to eventually by 2030 have those models touch 3 billion people around the world.
It goes back to that collaborative approach.
Correct.
So thinking about some of the challenges, it seems like more and more we're seeing medical disinformation out there. How concerned should we be about that, and what can we do about it?
Well, I think we've had this for a long time.
Okay, so nothing new.
So we have much more information at our disposal, and we much more now trust the first piece of information that comes our way. So there is a rise of people having misinformation or disinformation. However, I have for years throughout my career said to patients, don't just search for the topic, go to a reputable source, then find information on the topic. Start there. So again, that's something we feel very strongly about at Mayo Clinic, that we can be a trusted voice. We have more people visit our Mayo Clinic website than any other healthcare organization. We're just a little behind WebMD. That's now changing through AI search when it's offered up as a large language model. So we really feel that the most important thing is to have trusted voices. Mayo Clinic, others, trusted voices that can be relied upon, really work hard to have their voices elevated, to have that be the first thing that people run into, but also to tell people that basic message that I've given for decades, which is go to a reliable source first, then gather your information.
Well, and I think that having that sort of approach, letting people have the ability to look at a trusted source on their own and then make those conclusions, I think probably helps
Right. And there's more than one trusted source. So people say, oh, I don't want to be pigeonholed into always believing Mayo Clinic. That's fine. Look at Mayo Clinic's information, then go to the National Cancer Institute, then go to Johns Hopkins, then go to a variety of places, gather your information, compare notes. You don't have to just trust one voice, but do it with reliable voices.
Well, as we wrap up, thinking about the future, and obviously we're looking at a pretty significant expansion, but 10 years from now, what do you think we'll be talking about? What will Mayo look like?
Yeah. Well, I am sure will continue to grow, but I think it will be a lot of what I've mentioned, just to a greater scale. I really believe that Mayo Clinic can become an auto-learning and auto-improving organization. As we weave some of these technologies and everything we do every day, we should be getting insights that come back from every patient we serve. So I imagine a future where, God forbid, you get some complex diagnosis and you come to Mayo Clinic. We know you and we know a lot about you before you ever physically arrive. And once you're there, we get even deeper and understand your goals and what's important to you in life and so forth. And yet we can take a digital twin of you and run it against incredible, vast stores of data that can essentially run a Monte Carlo simulation of various treatment pathways. Well, what if we went this way? What if we went this way? What if we went this way? What are the percentage chances of cure, of this side effect, of that side effect? Now let's match those up with your goals, and that we will be able to both give you that human level comfort, but have assistance with our care teams that can allow us to communicate with you around your goals in a much more precise way, and then guide you along that pathway. And along that pathway will be a lot of other breakthroughs. Reprogramming of cells, cellular therapies will continue to evolve. There's a lot of things down that pathway, but at theme, it will be knowing people to an even more personal level, understanding various options and pathways well, and matching it up with your personalized goals.
It gives me hope for the future.
Yes, and maybe you'll be able to sleep through the night in the hospital too.
There you go. That would be good. Well, thank you for spending so much time with us. We're going to do a quick lightning round with you.
All right.
Very easy questions, quick questions. All right, since I know you're a car guy. First car.
This is a great one. It was a 1969 Ford station wagon, which served as the ambulance on a ski hill where I grew up. So it was old, it was rusted, and it was cheap. And I drove it until the frame rusted in half. There were holes in the floorboard.
Flintstones effect.
Yeah, where I would see through as I drove.
Sure, parents love that.
Oh, it was affordable.
Yeah. All right, excellent. First job. What was your first job?
Yeah, my first job was working at a ski and golf resort.
Okay, there's a theme there.
Yes, so my father actually worked at a ski and golf resort. And so I got a job there, both in the summer on the golf course, putting golf clubs on golf carts and cleaning them up as they came in. And then in the winter, fitting people up with their ski rentals and selling them lift tickets.
What'd you learn?
I learned that it was hard to go to work. You think going to school is a big deal. It's not a big deal when you go to work. And I learned that you have to figure out how to get along with a lot of different types of people who have a lot different goals and perspectives than you do.
Absolutely. First concert.
I'm not a big concert person.
Okay.
So my first concert was actually an accidental concert. When I was in high school, I took some buddies of mine who may not have been as good as me about avoiding alcohol, and therefore would tap me sometimes to drive them
in the
places.
station wagon, yeah.
Yes, to take them to a concert. One of whom was indisposed by the time we got to the concert.
Okay.
And so my other buddy said, well, you should come in with us. So
Fringe benefit of driving.
It was actually a rock concert called Rat.
Oh, sure.
Rat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's credibility there.
Yeah.
That's very good. I asked my kid that, and he's 21, and he's like, the Wiggles. So don't worry, you did better than my kid.
All right, fair enough.
All right, so person or book that changed your life for our final question?
So I am a person of faith, and so my Christian faith is a centerpiece of me. So I guess I would have to say the biggest influence on my life in that realm would be the Bible and God and Jesus Christ. But I would put my parents right up there with it.
Well, I couldn't think of a better answer than that. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everything you're doing in our community, and we hope to have you back soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of Let's Talk Business Phoenix. Please take a moment to tap the follow or subscribe button for more great podcast episodes to help your business thrive.